Hello again. It's Dennis Collins back with another episode of Connect and Convert, the Sales Accelerator podcast, where small business owners come to hear about the insider secrets. Yeah, the insider secrets to grow sales faster than ever. Hey, Leah Bumphrey, my partner in crime.
Hello, Dennis Collins.
How about a belated Thanksgiving, a happy Thanksgiving wish to you and all your Canadian countrymen? We're recording this in the same week that Canada celebrated Thanksgiving. We're coming up here in the US in a couple of weeks. How did your day go? I hope it was very pleasant.
It was fantastic. I know Thanksgiving is not really religious, but my dressing and my gravy were. They were really a religious experience, I have to tell you. I'm well known
A
for that.
religious experience.
Yeah. It
Okay,
just
now you've triggered me now because you just hit on some of my favorite foods. How do I get to taste that, to experience that religion?
we're gonna have to figure this out. We're gonna have to figure this out because I
I'll tell you
can
what,
make it not on Thanksgiving.
but I can make you another bet on hockey. Remember how you lost the bet last year on hockey?
Wait,
Okay,
how do I
now
get
we're
in
done.
in this? Hold on. Where's
You know
mine?
what,
Paul, I just like you. I just
Oh,
like you. I'm just gonna send you
we
some. I
might
don't.
just
We
send it
don't
to
have.
you. I
Yeah.
got to make her a bet to get mine. See?
well,
And
I
thank
then
you,
don't
Lee.
have
I
to lose
appreciate
that.
that. Yes. Okay.
I don't have to lose a bet to send some of my dressing to you. No,
Okay.
there's
Well,
got to
then
be
I'll
a way.
come. Then I'll go to Paul's house then, if you want it that way. See, I'll go visit Paul. But anyway, I'm
Perfect.
glad you had a good day, and we're looking forward to our Thanksgiving in about a month from the day of this recording. So, hip hip hooray! So, today, Leah, in one of our last episodes, I put it all out there. I related a tale of a career that almost derailed before it ever got started. Remember that?
I do. You were very open and honest
Well,
and
yeah,
teaching, coaching mode with that.
but you were very supportive in saying, that incident wasn't your fault. It was the other guy's fault. And if I'm not going to tell our listeners any of the details, you got to go back and listen to that one. Okay.
Yes,
If you
it's a
didn't
good
catch
one,
it,
you guys.
you got to go back and listen. But I'm going to challenge Leah today. I'm going
My
to
own
challenge her.
challenge.
I'm going to challenge her to do her story. Okay. Do you have a story on maybe not your best day, or maybe something that didn't go well for you, or a big fail? Or do you have one of those? I can't imagine you even have one, but I'll ask you, do you have one?
Oh, this is why I love working with you, Dennis, because you always make me feel so good about all the stuff that I can just have a ticker tape going through my mind of all those things that I should have done better. But when we were talking about it, and it's not a total surprise to me that you were going to ask, but I did give it some thought because there's some neat stuff that I think would really help our small business owners and
Yeah.
our sales pros. And, if you can learn to not do stuff because of what other people do, I think that's a pretty high form of learning and it's a pretty high form of sharing. And you and I are all about sharing.
Isn't
We're
that
all
why
about
we're
trying to
here?
do
Isn't that
this.
why we're here? We're trying
That's
to
why we're
help
here.
our viewers, our listeners, from making the same mistakes we made. Okay. By
Yep.
sharing those mistakes and saying, hey, do this, do that, try this, try that. And you may not have to suffer that like we did.
Yeah, that's true. I love being in sales and I love the opportunity that Wizard of Ads has brought to me to do sales in the industry that I am, which is radio sales. That's the same
Right.
industry that you came from, to do it
Right.
properly. That's
Right.
why you and I are so thrilled that wizardofads.org sponsors us, because it speaks to the how and it speaks to the why. You're wanting to do things for the right reason, in the right way, and the focus is always on growth. So that's why
All
you and
on
I
growth.
do this. But my story had a lot of ebbs and flows to it before I was able to, kind of find my niche working with people like you, Dennis, and with Paul and with our clients and with the potential for other clients to call us and us to help them. I wouldn't call it a tale of woe, but picture this. I'm just teasing. If you look it's very, very dramatic. I speak a little bit to my early history in sales in one of my initial blog posts with Wizard of Ads. And that was the volunteer work I did. Some of my earliest memories are with my parents, going door to door, and I can still recite the script. And I grew up doing that and was with the purpose of helping people. And I have never had a fear of talking to people and those cold calls. I mean, that's the ultimate in cold calls when you're 3, 4 years old, handing people a pamphlet and telling them why they should take it and why
3 or
they have to
4
pay you
years
10
old?
cents. Oh, yeah. It was
I thought I started early.
wow.
Jeez.
And technically, if you were talking to my parents, they would say it's not sales, but really, there's a lot of the same skill set.
Sure.
Both my parents came from backgrounds where they were, and we've talked a little bit about it, where they have great sales skills. So I was
Right.
blessed with that. When my dad seriously got into sales as a career, I would have been in my early teens, and he knew I was a huge reader. So he handed me books like Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. He handed me the Dale Carnegie, and he said, Leah, read this. I think this is good. I think this is good. And it really got
Good
my,
dad.
yeah,
What a good
it
dad, huh?
really was. Really got my mind thinking, really got me realizing the opportunity that was there. All of this, I ended up, like a lot of people in their late teens, early 20s, lots of stuff going on. Going to university, pursuing an actual career wasn't really something that I was able to do at that time. But you'll get a kick out of this. I actually spent very small stint, about 15 minutes in a telemarketing room.
Oh, really?
I was hired for, and I mean, minimum wage back then would have been about $3 an hour in Saskatchewan. And I was hired at
Boy.
18 bucks plus commission. And I sat in this room with about, oh, I don't know, probably 20 other people. And that building is now gone. It was in downtown Saskatoon. And I walked out after 15 minutes because I went, this is not me. I can't follow this script and do this. But I was hired. And then I spent like my last 10 bucks getting a dress dry cleaned because I again had another interview. It turned out it was for selling Kirby vacuum cleaners. And the reason why they wanted to hire me was because I had worked a little bit with my dad, who sold Electrolux vacuum cleaners. And I'd made like $400 one summer
You're
as a
kidding.
student working.
But
So
isn't it, didn't they provide excellent training? I mean, I've
they
never gone through that, but I heard that they did. No?
they did, but
Yeah.
I didn't believe in the product. And so I walked out and said, no, I'm not
Oh,
doing this.
so what was the
So
matter? It didn't work? The product? Was it?
it worked, but you know what? My heart was with what my dad had sold.
I
So you know
understand.
what? I was sold on what he was selling,
I
but
understand.
I didn't want to do that. I ended up working in a parts department of a computer conglomerate, huge. It's now HP, Compaq, you know those names.
Yeah,
Digital
of course.
Equipment was the
Yeah.
original. And so I was hired by them to work. They needed someone who was able to answer the phones. I was not quite 19. They needed someone that would be okay at unwrapping parts. So I did that. And I was in the parts department doing my thing. I'm not a technical person. I know that's going to make Paul laugh, but I did learn the guts of a
Me
computer.
too.
I had an email account before most people did. So I was doing that. And then as I was sitting there and realizing, no, this is not what I want to do. I want to, be doing something where there's more opportunity. I was taken to Regina, which is a city a couple of hours from here,
Right.
with the group of us, and they were doing quality. Quality matters. You remember the quality theme for all businesses? It would have been it would have been the late 80s, mid to late 80s. Everything was
Yeah.
quality.
There was,
So we were
wasn't
having
there a
these,
guy, Deming or Denning or something like that?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But he was kind of the godfather of that movement, and everybody adopted it. It was like, you got to do this.
Yep,
Yeah.
this is what you're doing. And every once in a while, our business owners will have seen these kind of thrusts. Well, it was the quality movement.
Right.
And we were in a room and there were salespeople and hardware people and software people and, people like me that were more support people. And they called for individual breakout groups and then they wanted presentations. And I just decided I'd had enough of being the gal in the back. So I said, I'll do it. So I went to the front of the room and I put not to be offensive, but I put a little paper towel so that I looked like, the pastor. And I went up and yes, I was preaching quality.
Really?
And I loved it. I had so much fun.
Can you
Our,
give us
our
an
group
example?
won.
Maybe not today, but
Not today.
you
But
got to give
it
us
was,
that speech someday.
oh, I don't even know if I could remember it. But jaws dropped because nobody could believe that this 20-year-old mouse from the back room who was fine answering phone calls and, friendly with everyone, actually knew how to project and talk and get to the meat of it. So then I'm thinking, this is fantastic. So I had a sales manager that wanted to talk to me. I had another sales manager that wanted to talk to me because they're thinking, how could they move me into a position where, hey, this is something we should be talking to her about. And you know what, Dennis? I was so excited.
I bet.
But then I was sitting there and being interviewed, and my lack of education came up. And I'll never forget this one woman, Linda, broke my heart. She closed the book and she said, you have no education. There's nothing we can do with you. And I said, oh, but I've done this and I've done this and I've read this and I know this. And she just closed the book and walked away. And I went, okay, I guess there's nothing we can do. And fast forward a couple of years, because I continued reading and I continued pursuing other things. I ended up having a friend at that business give me a lead to be interviewed by another company. And I was all excited. It was wine, a California wine. Well, I knew nothing about wine, but I went to the interview and they loved me.
But you liked wine. Huh?
Yeah. But you know what? I nailed the interview. They loved me. They just said, oh, you are exactly who we are looking for, except you don't have any education. We can't hire you. You don't have a commerce degree. All right.
Oh.
So not long after that, the position that I had in this nice, safe environment in the warehouse ended. I was given the choice, and Sean worked with me at the same place. They gave us actually both the choice to move out to Calgary and to, hang on to our jobs. And I went, him and I talked, and no, we're not going to do that because this was the opportunity. So then I had to find a job. I had to find something.
Right.
And I only applied for positions that were sales positions, that were growth positions. I didn't let myself be afraid of commission-only positions. I went, no, I've been hired by a couple of these before. I've been turned down by some of these bigger places. I'm going for it. And when I did that, and I went to the interviews, and the place actually that hired me, and I will give them a shout out, Pitney Bowes, mailing equipment.
Yeah.
You want to talk about an unbelievable training opportunity there for somebody who is interested in sales. I went for the interviews and I decided I'm going to get this job. So I did the follow-up. Dennis, you'd have been so proud of me. 10 days after the interview, I phoned and I said, you know what? I have 2 other positions and I'm going to have to make a decision by Monday. So if you guys want me, let me know.
Wow,
I did not have 2 other positions.
Of course you didn't.
I'm pretty sure they knew I didn't have 2 other positions.
Yeah, sure they've
but I
heard
went
that
for
before,
it.
yeah.
But I went for it, and I
Did it work?
yeah, they hired me. As a matter of fact, I was planning to buy a motorcycle, and instead I had to buy a little car because in sales you have to have a car.
Motorcycle.
I was going to be driving a motorcycle.
Are you a cycle chick?
Aspired to be.
Oh.
I aspired to be, but then I ended up with my little Sunbird. And you know what, Dennis? It was exactly the perfect thing that I got this position. They looked around the room when we were in an initial training day. There were 6 of us. And they said, there's going to be 2 of you standing in 4 months. And I went, it's going to be me. It's going to be me. And it was a numbers game, and it was hard slugging and tons to learn. At the end of my career, I had gone as high as I could. The next step was going to be sales manager. They weren't going to interview me to become the sales manager. And I demanded an interview. And actually, the guy that interviewed me out of Winnipeg ended up interviewing me while I was sitting in my car because he realized that I was pushing. You have to interview me. He ended up hiring a buddy of his. You'll be happy to know it didn't work out for him. But that meant
karma.
That meant it meant that I had to move on from Pitney Bowes. So I was going to another position, and it carried on from there. But you know what? When I made the decision, no, I'm going to do this, when I was forced to make the decision to go into sales, that's when it happened. Then I started thinking, okay, just because I was forced, what about goal setting? What about where it comes from inside of me? What about my own intuition? Because I knew I didn't belong in a warehouse, but it was safe and it was right. And I look back on that, and I even think about other opportunities, even within media where I ended up working. When I did not listen to that voice inside of me that told me it was the right thing to do. I'll give you this example. One of my first sales managers, after a year of just killing it on the sales floor, every month I had exceeded, now not exceeded in dollars, but you know how you track percentages. I was killing the
You
percentage
mean
of my
like
budget.
closing percentages?
Yeah, absolutely. So after
Yeah.
it was the second month of being there,
You
I
were
actually
the
was
top.
getting, yeah, I
Yeah.
was percentage wise, I was killing it. Third month again, fourth month again. I finally went to the sales manager. I said, you know what? You got to take me out of the running because you made my targets too small.
No one has ever said.
Yeah, I know. And that was actually one of the stupidest things I ever did because I expected that somehow I would still get noticed, but I ended up not getting noticed. Right. I was trying to do things to be like, okay, I'm feeling a little shy. I don't want my name announced all the time. I should have. I should have been excited about it. Why not?
Hey, I get it. There's points in my life where I felt that same way. I overcame that though.
Oh, yes. The other thing, you'll get a kick out of this as a former radio guy. After about a year, I went and I said, you know what? Where I was working for Pitney Bowes, I was putting together deals that were like in the tens of thousands of dollars and the hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're talking huge pieces of equipment. And I said, I'm not used to these little deals. Because really, you're looking at that time, we were not following a structure where it would be longer terms, you know, $1,000 sale or a $2,000 sale. I'd go home and tell Sean, and he would say, is that good? That's a lot less than what you used to sell.
Yeah.
But I was told, yeah, no, you're thinking wrong. You don't put big deals together. Well, my intuition said, why can't you? And I followed it.
Yes. Again.
When I followed what I felt to be true, and that's not based on just because I'm so smart, but the things that I have read, the people that I've talked to, even with writing weekly reports, when I didn't follow, doing it the way Leah writes, when I'm trying to write the way someone else would do it, it doesn't work for me. And anytime I've had a stall in my career or had a moment where, okay, this isn't working, it's because I forgot to tune in to who I really am and what my long-term goal is and the people around me that I support. Like right now, if I was looking at doing something different, you know, Dennis, how many times have I called you for advice or Paul for advice or the myriad of other people that we have in our lives that really know this stuff? So I know I'm going to do it again. I know I will fail to listen to that voice inside of my head. But whenever I delayed and really wanted something and waited for the universe to force it, it still happened. But wouldn't it be better if I just listened?
The first time. Listen.
The first time. Because you get that 2x4
I don't
and
know.
it keeps knocking you.
That's a great question, though. That's a real philosophical kind of turning point that when do you listen to that intuition? When do you listen to it? And, hindsight is always 2020. So, I mean, you can sit here today and say, geez, I should have, could have, would have, should have. But I'll bet, Leah, you had some pretty good reasons for not listening to it. Do you recall why you didn't listen to it?
Yeah, and often it was about family and about finances. Right? So you're right. Maybe it was just the wrong time, but maybe, and that's why I think it's important to have the right way of balancing any decisions you make. Because I'm not going to go back and lament because I wouldn't be here doing this podcast with you if I'd have done everything differently. I'd be selling wine somewhere in Italy, maybe. I'd rather be here doing the podcast.
That doesn't sound too bad to me.
we would have met there, right?
Hey, no doubt. In some vineyard, half drunk.
I love it. And I wouldn't say half. Anyway.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, half.
But I do reflect on the fact that even talking about not going to university, I was talking with one of my sisters once, and university was not something that was promulgated by our parents. There was a financial issue, and you can get a little pooky about the fact that, okay, I wasn't supported in doing this. Yet, as my sister said, you know what? There are people that do it anyway. There are people in the world that I know who just did it anyway. Why was that not in my head? And as you said, you can argue that, okay, there's reasons why, and you know what? You end up where you are, and that's your new starting point. But I really challenge our listeners to think about why you're not doing something. If you're looking at hiring someone new for your business, is it because you're unsure of being able to pay them, or is it because of another reason? If you're looking at growing your business or changing your business, really understand why you are making the decision and that there are options. Because most of the time in my life when I went, I can't, that's something I absolutely can't. And then it changed and I could. It was like a weight coming off of your shoulder.
But what changed? Can we
could.
pause on that? I love that. Okay, so you said when it changed, what changed it, or how, I think it would be informative for us to know who are listening to this magnificent story. What is it? What's the process of changing that? How does that happen? Is it organic, or is it something you decide on, or how does that work?
Ultimately, the change happens with a decision, but you cannot make a decision without information. If you just do it on emotion, that's not going to help you. If you just do it on logic, that's not going to help you.
But it sounds to me, not to interrupt, but it sounds to me like some of the stuff you decided was on emotion. It was on emotion. It was that you had the desire to succeed. You were determined, which to me, determination is 100% emotional. It's a passion. And it sounds to me like you didn't have all the facts and figures lined up. Did I mishear you, maybe?
Oh, no, you're right. I didn't. When I had nothing but the facts and figures, that actually prevented me, because it prevented me from making a decision, or I felt like this was the only path because that's the one that's nicely paved. But when there was emotion in there, and with the emotion, you have to have some logic, you have to have somewhere to go. I mean, I'm glad I didn't end up in a telemarketing pit somewhere.
Leah, think of this. Maybe you would have been, you'd probably own the damn telemarketing center, right?
Well, and see, that's
I mean, what I'm hearing you say is that take the hand that you're dealt and make it happen anyway. You don't have three aces and two kings. You don't have that hand. That's true. The hand you were dealt, but you still can make something happen. That's what I'm hearing. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It makes me think of the quote that the only difference, or that there is no difference between someone who doesn't read and someone who can't read. Think about that. There's no difference between someone who can't, so someone who's totally illiterate, was never taught, never given the
doesn't
opportunity,
know how to read,
and someone who doesn't.
Who won't read.
And you can apply that to reading, you can apply that to learning.
So let me ask you this, because I know where with the point you are at now in your life, you are a reader, you are a learner, you are a gifted writer. I mean, you have a whole list of skills. Okay. How important was reading to developing these skills?
Oh, critical. I can remember books that I read as a kid that still influence me now, because they taught you the ability to think critically, that maybe there's another way of looking at things. Maybe, I mean, even think about I was thinking about this morning, Dennis, right now, as you and I are speaking, there's not unusual to the world, but unusual to this point in time, there's issues happening in the Middle East. That's happened my whole life. Now,
and will continue, I think.
And it will continue.
Unfortunately. But you know what? Unfortunately.
As a teenager, I read Leon Uris, who's a prolific, fantastic writer of historical fiction. And he wrote Exodus, which went on to be a great movie. The book is, as always the case, 10 times better. But he really made the case for the formation of the nation of Israel. He really made that case. But this same man wrote The Hague. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, H-A-J. And he showed the other side of it. He showed what was happening to the people that were, now we call it Gaza, but the Palestinians.
The Palestinians, he looked at the other side as well,
He was able to present both sides in a way that made me go, are you kidding me? These are people. If I wouldn't have read those books and reread them, I might gravitate solely towards this or solely towards that, instead of realizing we are all people.
So it opened your mind. It opened your mind. Yeah. So I'm not sure who said this, but I'll paraphrase what I think it says, that the true mark of a really intelligent person is that person who can not only speak and defend their position, but can speak and defend the position of their opponent. Yeah. Is that what you're saying? That this man understood both sides and articulated them equally as well, from what
That's
I hear
right.
you saying. Yeah.
And by reading all kinds of things, it gives us the opportunity to hold a thought in our mind. And that's
Yes,
what we try and do with our podcast, Dennis. We're talking about thoughts and ideals and
I do. Yeah.
possibilities and stories, because stories are all the basis. And yes, we also
Sure.
have science and facts and information, but it's that combination and taking the time out to ponder them, to let them float around in our heads a little bit. It makes all the difference to
Oh.
what's possible. And in business, there are things that are possible and good things.
Let me harp on what you just said. Please repeat what you just said. The last line is the billboard. That's the billboard for today's session.
That possibilities are there, and they're good possibilities in business if we allow ourselves the time to see them.
And I want you to give me a billboard statement on determination. These stories were, within these stories, there was several common factors, but one that I heard was determination. Give me a billboard for our business owners. What's your billboard about determination?
If you know it, if you sense it, if you smell it, you can do it.
I like that. So if you feel it,
Yeah.
if you
A
feel
lot
it,
of times we already know, and we're looking for someone else to do it. That doesn't work. You can't do anything for me, Dennis, but man, you can do stuff with me, which is why we have this fantastic opportunity to talk to so many people and make a difference.
This has been a great story, man. We could probably go on for hours on this, couldn't we? I love how you wove it. You wove it beautifully. Kind of your origin story and how you got started and to where you ended up, and the role that certain factors played in where you sit right now. And it had nothing to do with education. I kid about it, but how many people waste their so-called education? They don't end up anywhere near the field that they were trained allegedly to do. And the relationship between what they're doing today and how they got educated, there's no relationship there. And come on. I mean, that as a knockout factor for you, of course, was a big mistake. Luckily, there were people who said, I see something. I see something.
Yep. Now, this brings us to, we love the opportunity that we give our listeners to ask us specific questions. Part of what we want to do is also have them inquire about our 60-minute discovery call. That's when you and I get into it, and we have a Zoom call where we're able to talk about broader questions. Please, our email addresses, Leah Bumphrey at wizardofads.com, Dennis Collins at wizardofads.com. Call us about that. But we did have one question that we can share with everybody. So I like throwing these to you, Dennis.
I know you do.
And
ask us anything. Yeah. Don't ask us anything. Maybe we have to have some boundaries on that.
Oh, yeah, there's a few boundaries in there.
Okay.
Okay, this one is a good one. There are so many YouTube gurus out there. Why should I call you guys?
There are so many YouTube gurus out there. Why should they call Leah and Dennis, right?
That's right.
That's a good question.
I have a thought on that.
Tell me
I want yours. My thought is...
You want mine first? Or
I want yours first. I've been talking a lot.
Mine first. My impression is that anybody who has a camera and a computer can put anything they so desire on a YouTube channel. I mean, just go on YouTube today, if you haven't recently, and look at what's on there. Okay? I don't care what your topic, I don't care what you're interested in, what you want to learn how to do, it's on YouTube, right?
Yep.
But here's the deal. How can somebody on YouTube write you a prescription, i.e., give you a script, okay, a doctor would do, without hearing your story? I'm not casting a shadow on any of the people who are on YouTube. Some of them are very good, but what the heck, Leah? What we do is custom. We sit and listen. In fact, before we even take an assignment for a client, we do a very deep dive in person with the owners, the key people, and we listen and we write a report. I call it a prescription. We write a prescription, say, okay, here's what we think the illnesses are. We've identified 5 or 6 different problems. Here's our solution. So we're not a YouTube channel. We actually come into your world, live in your world for a few days, figure out what's going on in your world, and feed it back to you with our solutions. Do the YouTube channels do that?
I love it. I love it. And you know what? We're on YouTube.
Yeah, and I have
People
no
may-
problem with YouTube.
Yeah.
I just would say this to you: if that's your source of, if that's your only source of information for, if you need to know how to fix a bicycle or fix your plumbing or something, great. Okay, but we're talking about transformational training here. What we do is transformational training. It's not transactional. It's not, okay, put the screw in this hole and tighten it 3 times. No, we're doing transformational training, skill building. You are not going to build skills watching a YouTube video. Sorry.
No, you're right. And the only thing I would add to what you're saying, Dennis, is when people are listening to us, they're either feeling a connection, what we're saying resonates with them or not.
Or it doesn't.
It's the beginning. This we're doing because we love what we do.
And
Answering
sometimes
this
we
kind
actually,
of questions.
well, sometimes we actually walk away when we don't believe the engagement is going to serve both of us. Okay. It has to be a 2-way street for me. I will not take on any engagement that I don't believe where I can help. And if I don't feel that I'm a good fit, I'll turn it over to somebody else. I will in a heartbeat, because that's going to end in disaster for both of us.
So before we say goodbye to everybody, the challenge is, if you have one of those moments in the next week where you're going, I'm tempted, I think I should, I don't know why, give yourself a chance to look at the logic and the emotion behind why you're leaning one way or the other. It's going to give you some valuable insights into what you should do.
What a great story. Thank you for being so vulnerable with us, for telling us your pathway. I can learn from your pathway. I already have, and I think our listeners and viewers can too. So kudos to you, Leah, for sharing. I appreciate you. I appreciate your sharing. And I welcome all of our viewers, our listeners, to join us every week. Yes, every week we have a new episode of Connect and Convert. That's all for today. See you next time.